Let's face it, there was a bishop in the Middle Ages there, 1800 something, who added up the dates listed in Genesis, and he came up with the world had been around for 6,000 years. There ain't no way that's possible. You know, anybody that's in the oil business knows that he's drilling down. He drilled down 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles underground. You're coming into all these layers that were laid down by the dinosaurs. And we have skeletons of dinosaurs that go back about 65 million years. And to say that it all came about in 6,000 years is just nonsense. And I think the time we come off of that stuff and say this isn't possible. But we've got to be realistic that the dating of Bishop Ussher just doesn't comport with anything that is found in science. And you know, you can't just totally deny the geological formations that are out there, the rock formations and all the things that go all over the world, especially the bones. Let's be real. Let's not make a joke of ourselves. Let's not make a joke of ourselves. Let's not make a joke of ourselves.
And now 2 of them are questioning the Bible. This scares me. They tell me if the Bible is truth, then I should be able to reasonably explain the existence of dinosaurs. This is just one of many things they question. Even my husband is agreeing with them. How do I explain things to them that the Bible doesn't cover? I'm so afraid that they're walking away from God. My biggest fear is to not have my children and husband next to me in God's kingdom.
Look, I know people are probably trying to lynch me when I say this, but Bishop Ussher, God bless him, wasn't inspired by the Lord when he said it all took 6,000 years. It just didn't. And you go back in time, you've got radiocarbon dating, you've got all these things, and you've got the carcasses of dinosaurs frozen in time out in the Dakotas. You know, they got Sue, that big what was it?
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
The fierce one. I'm sorry.
Is it a Tyrannosaurus?
Yeah, it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and
good boy.
I don't know if this one had a female name like Susie or something.
Sue.
But anyhow, they're out there. And so there was a time that these giant reptiles were on the earth, and it was before the time of the Bible. So don't try to cover it up and make like everything was 6,000 years. That's not the Bible. That's Bishop Ussher. And so if you fight revealed science, you're going to lose your children. And I believe in telling them the way it was.
He doesn't actually say he believes in evolution in these comments, but he's this close to that when he's acknowledging how old the planet is. You know, it's amazing what time can do. I mean, look at the erosion of a shoreline. It's still a shoreline, right? No matter how much it erodes, it's always going to be a shoreline. I kind of look at evolution the same way, and how a species changes over millions of years. Anyway, so on with my video. You know, I hate feeling like a broken record. Now it's like I don't ever run out of people like this. Now I have somebody named, let me see if I can get his name right here, Kevi Maru, who is either a Poe or... I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing that this person can be really this stupid, or if this is just sarcasm. He's being silly. He writes, God is beyond science and still in control over science, for God created the natural world. Kids who learn to properly fear the Lord become productive members of society. They do. Interesting. Have you ever done a review on what the percentages are in prison in the United States that are religious, Christians versus atheists? So they're productive members of society, huh? Okay. Kids need to learn of the lack of evidence in evolution and live with a balanced view of life. Really? And a balanced, and you're the one who gets to decide what kind of a view of life other people have. I commented back that there's mountains of evidence for evolution, which there is. He writes, science is not evolution. Evolution is not science. There is no evidence For macroevolution, once a snake, always a snake. The hummingbird laughs at Charles Darwin. Now, first of all, Kevi, I don't think you should have the right to post comments on YouTube. Oh, you know what? I have to change what I was going to say because he's changed his settings. Originally, I could not reply. For whatever reason, I could not reply back to this guy. It was very annoying. He has done, and I said something about it in a message, in my return message. He has changed his settings. Good boy. Now I can at least reply to you. That's a good thing. Because I was going to say, I have seen this before where you can get a comment from somebody and there's no option to reply back. And in my opinion, people who want to leave these little bombs on other people's channels and then run away and not make it possible for the person to respond back are cowards. They're cowards. But okay, we cannot say that about Kevi Maru. And now that I've noticed this, I will try to tone down my level of contempt that I was feeling before I noticed this. But I do feel like a broken record. This guy is clearly an adult. Pat Robertson, come on. If Pat Robertson can acknowledge the importance of science and the significance of science and not overlook it or just ignore it, you know, and so yeah, Kevi, and I hope Kevi, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but I probably am. There's a lot, macroevolution, evidence for macroevolution is everywhere. You are in denial. I have said this in so many videos. I mean, I feel like macroevolution is everywhere. Just look at the horse chestnuts that horses have on their legs. Just look at dew claws that dogs have on their feet. I have a boa constrictor. Oh, I have to say, you're right. A snake is a snake. Once a snake, always a snake. You're right. You're right. You don't understand evolution to make a statement like that. Evolution doesn't say that one species of animal turns into something else, into another whole species. It just adapts. You're right that snakes, once a snake, always a snake, but once upon a time, snakes, at least some of them, had legs. I have a boa constrictor, which is, if not the most primitive snake, one of the more primitive snakes on the planet. And boa constrictor males, well, females and males, but males have it more prominently, have the nubs of their hind claws in the back of their body. Horses have chestnuts, dogs have dew claws, cats also have little things on their feet that used to be a toe. I don't know if it's called a dew claw. Humans have their appendix. I'm trying to think of other things. Probably in time we won't have little toes because, you know, I mean, I don't know. But there are evidences of macroevolution all over the place, and the fossil record is fraught with evidence of macroevolution. Every fossil is a transitionary form, because every species on the planet is in a gradual change over millions of years. A gradual change. If you take a species and on an island and something catastrophic happens and the island splits in half and part of the island goes way over to the coldest part of the planet while the other part of the island stays where it is, and I don't know if that's possible, I'm just making this up, but this is kind of a change of an environment is one of the things that causes adaptation of a species. So the species over here in the cold environment is going to adapt. It's either going to die off completely because it's not used to the colder environment, or it's going to adapt, and the strongest members of that species, the members of that species that have something about them that make them able to survive the change in climate, will survive, and the ones that don't have whatever it is. I gave an example once of animals who graze, who suddenly lose grass to eat. The ones with the longer necks can reach up and eat the leaves, and eventually you're going to have a species that has longer necks because that's how they have to eat. So anyway, over time, if you take the adapted species over here that has had time to change and adapt to the colder climate and bring it back and try to breed it with this species over here, you're not going to be able to. Because one species has changed so much. I'm trying to think of other examples. There's modern examples of macroevolution. There's modern examples of, we have artificially taken the wolf and made, almost like a sculptor sculpts something from a piece of clay. We have sculpted from the wolf all these different forms of canine to suit our fancy, just by artificially creating natural selection. We take instead of letting the animals, mate as they will, we take animals with the characteristics that we want to build upon, and we breed them and only them, and then from those animals we take whichever offspring have that characteristic, and we continue to breed down until we have something that consistently creates that characteristic. That's how we come up with different breeds of dogs. That's human beings basically holding the puppet strings on the whole natural selection thing. We're basically manipulating what in the wild is actually happening naturally. Natural selection. Anyway, it's early in the morning. I don't have my coffee yet. There's so much to read. If you are seriously that ignorant, you should read. Evolution is, we are creatures that have evolved, and as evolved creatures, we mirror nature and what is natural in nature in our society. Another example of macroevolution is ourselves and what we make and create. Just in my lifetime, I've seen evolution in our technology. Huge steps in evolution in our technology. The TV is going the way of the dinosaur. I never thought I would ever see that happen. Ever see an 8-track tape player anymore? You have to go to a antique store for that, or a junk store for that. I remember I have a computer at work, and the little box that the monitor sits on is, I remember when it used to be like this tall, and I remember, they were huge. I remember when they used to take up a whole room. Trying to think of other examples. Well, we had the 8-track, we had cassettes, we had CDs, now we have digital. Eventually, all that shit's going to be gone, and we're just going to point and click on the computer what we want, and that's it. Which will be nice, because actually it won't be nice, because I have spent buco bucks on VHS tapes that I've thrown away or given away or whatever. Buco bucks! I had a huge collection of VHS tapes. Now I have a really big collection of, I'd say even bigger collection of DVDs. One day they're going to be as obsolete as the VHS tapes are. So kind of annoying, actually. But the point is, everything on the planet, evolution is a natural law. And we mirror that law in our technology because we're natural creatures. And to say macroevolution isn't real is kind of absurd. It's absurd. Even in our history, you can look back and see that in the castle doors in the ancient castles in Europe, you have to bend way down to get through the doors because grown men, not just people, but when I say people, I'm also talking about grown men. You know, the guys that wielded claymores. Yeah, I'm talking about big guys, knights in armor, you know, on horses with weapons. The guys that went to war, the kings, you know, they were really short because the doors are really short. Humans were a lot shorter, and that wasn't that long ago. So, you know, when you say, and I'm sorry, but you're saying science is not evolution, evolution is not science. Do you understand that evolution is a theory? Do you understand that gravity is a theory? Do you understand that the theory of relativity is a theory? Do you understand what a theory is? Do you understand how much it takes for a hypothesis to become a theory? How much work it takes? How much scrutiny by other scientists? And I mean, it goes through the ringer before a hypothesis is an accepted theory. And now, this is something I recently read, apparently of the two sciences, gravity is more questioned in science than evolution is. Do you think gravity isn't science? Do you think gravity isn't a theory? I'm sorry, but keeping your head in the sand and saying, once a snake, always a snake, is makes you sound stupid, because you know what? Evolution doesn't say that a snake turns into some other animal. A snake changes and evolves. Snakes used to look a lot different than they do now, but yes, they were always snakes. Horses used to look a lot different than they do now. They used to be about the size of a little fox, and they had toes, but they were still horses. They were just little creatures that didn't look remotely like they do now, and they had toes. I'm trying to think of some other examples. I have fossils of an earlier form of horse I should pull out. They're really cool, actually. What else? Elephants. There used to be a whole bunch of different kinds of elephants on the planet. They weren't called elephants. That would be an example of the change that adapting to different environments can create in a species. They're all pachyderms. You know, nothing stopped them from being pachyderms, but there were different forms of them all over the planet. Just because mammoths existed over here doesn't mean the mastodon ceased to exist over here. There were different versions, different adaptations of the pachyderm all over the planet, depending on the region and the environment. They look different from each other, and they all eventually died off, except the elephant, due to climate change or humans hunting them to extinction. So yeah, evolution doesn't say that one species turns into another species. Oh, the whale is another example. The creature that used to walk on the ground before it went into the sea and started using the water to find its food is still the same creature. I mean, it didn't disappear, it changed, it adapted, and now we call it cetaceans. I mean, that's the modern form of it. It swims in the ocean. It breathes air, but it can be under the ground. It breathes air, but it can be under the water for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. It can hold its breath for an amazingly long time. But it used to walk on the ground. It used to have legs. It used to have feet. This is evident in modern animals. You still can find dolphins with remnants of hind legs on them. If you look at the flipper, the skeleton of a flipper, you see the finger bones of the animal in the flipper. Or at least, now I'm straying into territory that okay, you know what? I'll be back. Do you see this? Do you see these pictures? Finger bones inside flippers. Yes. Okay, so yes, the skeletal remains, or whatever, the skeletons of cetaceans that swim in the sea still show evidence of the previous form that it was, the earlier form of this animal. Not saying it was a whole different animal. It was just it just looked different a long time ago than it does now. That's what I'm talking about. There you go. My point is, you just don't live in denial. Saying that evolution is not science is really makes you look kind of stupid. You know, if Pat Robertson can evolve, you know, maybe Kevi can evolve. Maybe there's hope for you yet. You know, all it takes is a little understanding of what evolution is. When you say that once a snake, always a snake, you show in just that little sentence that you do not understand what evolution is. Yes, it's ridiculous to say that a penguin is going to turn into a four-legged grass eater. You know, if that's what evolution was, I would agree with you. But evolution isn't that. Evolution is simply natural selection and climate change, and what makes a species able to cope with that and continue to live. Adaptation. It adapts. And that's all evolution is. It's adaptation and natural selection over millions of years. Snakes have always been snakes. So, I won't say that there was a question. Kevi didn't ask a question. He made a statement that is absurd. And that's it. That's my answer. And I'm tired of having to say this answer over and over and over. I wish these people that insist on believing in bullshit before they, you know what you're talking about before you try to argue with somebody about a well-established and supported science. You know, you saying that evolution is not a science, you can say that until you're blue in the face. That doesn't change the fact that, yes, it is. You saying that there's no evidence for macroevolution doesn't change the fact that, yes, there is. It's all around. It's in the fossil evidence. It's in modern day. It's in how we live our life. Evolution is evident everywhere. Just like gravity, it's a law of nature. And you look stupid when you say things like you did in your comment. So anyway, that's the end of my little response to this guy named Kevi. Thank you, Kevi. God, I hope I'm not saying your name right. I hope I'm saying your name right, because anyway. So that's it. I was actually going to say something else and I just completely lost the sentence. But that's my response to you. Open a book. Read a little bit. Not from a Christian book. Not from the crap they put out at church or at your local Christian bookstore. But an actual science book. Read from a science book. Read about what it takes for a hypothesis to become a theory. Thank you for watching if you have. Bye.